Alright, hello everyone. I'm back here, so let's get this started. Welcome to the Power of Habit. I haven't recorded anything for 3 days. Nice. Now today we're just going to talk about part 2, the habits of successful organizations. Now this is where we're actually going to talk about a bunch of safety, medical procedures, change, and apparently how to find a pregnant woman. If you have access to target data, that is. Let me explain in a jiffy. So let's get this started with. First of all, let's start off today's story with Alcoca. Alcoca. Now, Alcoca is actually pretty famous for its safety regulations. Also, another thing is it's the company that makes all the aluminum foil. Alcoca has been creating foil that was used in NASA space station, and the Hershey's Kisses wrappings, all those. That came in all too. That's where it all came from, and that's where Alcoca comes in. It's an aluminum manufacturing company, and it's still the #1 aluminum manufacturing company in the U.S. In fact, the U.S. government uses this aluminum foiling that the Alcoca creates. Even NASA uses it, as I mentioned already. And to be honest, it wasn't always like this. Apparently, lots of people have actually started getting hurt because of this. Of course, you're working with molten aluminum. But then there's this new company there's this new manager that come in, and so this guy was called Paul O'Neill, and he realized that the safety regulations are really terrible in Alcoca, and he was like, bro, get better safety, man. And then he realized, all right, I gotta do something new. And then he came into the manager, and he came to a plant, and then his first day as CEO of the company, he went in front of a bunch of stockbrokers and said, I will now focus my shift to go ahead and creating safety for this company. I am seeing so many unsafe things. I'll focus on safety only for now. And everyone was like, what? This guy's killing the company. He should be talking about how he's going to create new profit, how he's going to make a new plan so that they can create more money, not about safety. And everyone in the room, almost everyone in the room literally sold their stocks before everyone else did. That was a pretty big mistake that they made, and they regret it for the rest of their lives, because apparently this is pretty important. Alcoca, they were all saying, this guy, Paul O'Neill, he's gonna kill the company. Then what happened? And then Alcoca started doing things. Paul O'Neill started going around, and then he talked to a plant manager one day on the tour, and he said, all right, I'm willing to negotiate with everything except one thing, safety. If you're gonna argue with me about safety, you are going to lose. And they were, you know what? And it was the actual brilliance of this argument was that nobody wanted to argue about safety, because safety, if you injured workers equals less productivity and less worker time too, and also less wages for that person. And also Alcoca keeps losing money every time they lose employee, and back then employees had to take sick leave a lot, so that all happened. And then he decided to do implementations. He basically oversaw a bunch of things, and he decided to create new habits. He basically created safety habits, and he did it like this. He used the habit queue, and there's the trick in this. He made people go ahead and report accidents within 24 hours, and if they didn't, there was probably something that would happen. But the thing about this is that if they did do it within 24 hours, the manager who did it is literally the one who gets promoted, as long as they submit the injury with a recommendation of how they could have prevented this injury too. And so, of course, the brilliance of this, as I've already mentioned, is that only the people who reported this got the promotion. Everyone else, even if they worked harder than the people who reported, they didn't get promotions. The ones who actually reported the safety within 24 hours, and with a suggestion of how we can improve this safety feature, got the promotion. And so everyone actually started doing this. There was a worker injury, and then there was a manager who literally wants a promotion, and then he sends it within 24 hours, and he gets a promotion. Bing! And of course, however, it's actually pretty hard to get to send a report with a suggestion of how to fix all this within 24 hours. So of course this also transformed everything else. If they transform this, they would transform everything else. The managers literally created new 24/7 instant communication lines just for this purpose. They made sure that people had literally a box of ideas or suggestions nearby, so that whenever there was a working injury, they would search through the boxes and find one too. And apparently lots of people started putting in suggestions too, because apparently they all had suggestions in the past, but before this they were actually pretty scared or pretty not confident to actually do it. And then this started actually happening, and then people started going ahead. Like, if person got injured because of molten aluminum, they redesigned the molten aluminum system, and also meant less aluminum spills, which is pretty costly because they would literally lose a lot of money every time aluminum spills, and it hurts a person too. And then people actually started using the system too. And then 24 hours, and then Alcoca became one of the safest companies in the world. In fact, you'd be way safer working in Alcoca with molten aluminum than you were in a tech company like Apple or Microsoft. That is how safe Alcoca was. And then it all went uphill from there on. And then one day there was this manager, and then a nun, and while in a presentation, it was at the end, and then a nun basically spoke out and said, "Hey, there's this plant here, and they've got a report saying that they had at least 2 employees who've had to take off work for 3 days because of noxious foods, dude." And then the guy, and then Paul O'Neill was like, "No, that's not true. Look, here's a safety report, and the workers say they're fine." "You're lying! People, don't listen to Paul O'Neill. He's lying!" And the nuns church, the church that the nun worked for, literally had 50 shares of Alcoca. And then right after the presentation, Paul O'Neill called that nun to his office, and he was like, "All right, so explain this to me, please." "Well, here," and she said the same thing. "Did you go to the company? Did you go to the plans up?" "No, but you go check." And then he did, and then he realized there was a very, very small incident of fumes, but the manager never reported it. And then the manager itself was pretty respectable. He's been working for the company for at least a decade, and he has a clean report. And then he got immediately fired. Now, for people who were not Alcoca employees, or anyone who actually knew how Alcoca worked, were actually shocked. This guy was reputational, and he was the reason why lots of the Alcoca actually got a bunch of money. However, for anyone working inside of Alcoca, it wasn't pretty surprising, because even though this guy was working for a decade and had a clean slate, and he was the reason why lots of people actually still got, while Alcoca had $4 billion, had sales of $4 billion, it wasn't surprising because he broke the habit. He broke a culture that was created in Alcoca. And it's actually pretty important habits too. What I'm trying to say is habit, cue, habit. Now let's talk about Starbucks. Starbucks itself is actually pretty good too. Now here's actually one story that actually comes in. Willpower. Willpower is important too. Without willpower, you could do something. There was this one study that basically got 2 groups. One group was asked politely not to eat chocolate cookies. Well, one group was asked to eat chocolate cookies and ignore radishes, while the other group was asked to ignore radishes and eat the chocolate cookies. And then within the radishes and chocolate, eat the radishes and ignore the chocolate chip cookies group, they split them into 2 parts, where one of them was asked kindly to do it, very kindly in fact, and the second group was just shouted at, saying, "You must not eat the radishes! I mean, you must not eat the cookies, and you must eat the radishes," even though the cookies were warm and baked, freshly baked, and they're all In fact, some of them actually, they were observing all this in the chilly river, and there are actually some weird things that happened. For the ones that were shouted, some of them just went ahead, took a cookie, bit into it, and then hid it inside of them, hit it with them. Another one just grabbed the cookie, put it down, and licked the melted chocolate off their fingers. Well, the ones that were actually asked nicely actually had more willpower, and actually they all passed the test. They were all able to do it. And the group, and they did another experiment. It was the same thing, except they asked each of them in the same tone not to eat the radishes. It was not shouting, it was not kind either too. But then the ones with the most willpower, they did this happened too. And then they did this other experiment with infants. Kindergartners. And the kindergartners, they said, "Okay, you can have this marshmallow right now, but if you wait 15 minutes, you'll get 2 more marshmallows." And they're like, "Okay." And the ones, and 30% of them chose to wait 15 minutes, and they got 3 marshmallows in total. 15, like, okay, now fast forward 10 years, most of them are like 10 or something years, and most of them are in high school right now. They track them down and they ask them about their grades, their SAT scores and everything. Apparently the ones who waited 50 minutes for the 3 marshmallows got at least an average 210 more points than everyone else on ACT scores, SAT scores, and they had apparently all A+, most of them had A+, all of them. Wow, that was actually pretty good. And then in Starbucks, those are actually implemented in separate ways. Number one, those are actually very important. Okay, let me explain. So in there was this guy who worked for Starbucks, and right now, and today he is the manager of a Starbucks cafe shop, and he is in charge of like $2 billion per year of sales. And then, however, before that, he had a dad who literally was addicted to drugs. His mom was also addicted to drugs, and then his dad died. And also, he knew why his dad died. Also, he told 911 he had no idea why his dad died. And then he was given a job at McDonald's, but however, he was so stressed that he couldn't even keep the job at McDonald's. And then he went to Starbucks, and then he went through a course, and he was told to simulate every possible scenario, and he was able to practice his willpower. Willpower is like a muscle; it can be strengthened, like a heart can be strengthened if you practice it enough. And apparently, he practiced enough. And willpower is a learnable skill. It's just that most people choose not to learn it because they don't have the willpower to learn willpower. What the heck, man? Anyways, that all happened, and this guy who couldn't even keep a job at McDonald's, a high school dropout, became the manager of a Starbucks branch shop, and he's the reason why literally Starbucks earns a bunch of money every year. Also, not all of the money, of course. It's several percentage of the money, not even 10% to be honest. But hey, it's pretty important too. This guy who is a high school dropout got this. Is in charge of a bunch of money. Wow. He can even keep a job at McDonald's, and he got the job at Starbucks. Wow. Apparently Starbucks has a really good curriculum about willpower too. So hopefully you guys actually enjoyed this episode. Hope to see you guys soon. I'll see you in the second part of my part 2 review. So until then, signing out, peace, and wear a helmet.